Good Sunday morning to you. I'm so glad that you could join us here at First Church of God in Cushing, Oklahoma. If you're far away, we wish you were closer. If you live close by, we'd love to see you. Come on in and see us. We start at 10:30 in the morning, and we have a place just for you right here at the First Church of God. Hey, I don't know about you. I always loved the stories, especially the fairy tales and the children's stories that I grew up with. And one of them was Goldilocks and the Three Bears. I'm not going to tell the whole story, but I think you're familiar with it. This young girl goes into the bear's house. Okay, breaking and entering, that's a no-no. But she tries out everything. She tries out the porridge. It was too hot. It was too cold. Then she found one was just right. She tries the chairs. One was too hard. One was too soft. One was just right. She broke it. She gobbled up the porridge. She broke the chair. She goes and lays in the beds. Too hard, too soft, just right, falls asleep. The bears show up. She runs for her life. Moral of the story is don't break and enter. But she couldn't find the happiness that she was looking for. And I think all of us are looking for happiness. We want happiness. And as believers in Jesus Christ, are we supposed to be happy? I know a few people I've met, they look like they've been baptized in prune juice. But I think that we are. But we have to ask this question, what is our definition of happiness? Some say it's a feeling. It's what I feel when I'm around certain people, when I do certain things. Well, the problem is feelings are not happiness. Feelings are evidence of happiness. It's kind of like on Thanksgiving, you smell the turkey or ham in the oven and the other fixings all around, and there is this beautiful aroma. And the smell of what is cooking is evidence of the dinner. You would not want a substitute of the dinner. You want the real dinner. You don't want just the smell. You want the real thing. Because if it was that, you'd just be disappointed. If all you got for Thanksgiving was the aroma, it'd be pretty disappointing. So a proper understanding of happiness is that it's a combination of three things: enjoyment, satisfaction, and meaning. Philippians chapter 4, verses 11 and 12. I have learned to be content whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. When we need enjoyment, we need satisfaction, and we need meaning in balance and abundance if we're going to have the greatest level of well-being in our lives. Happiness is a direction, not a destination, and not intention determines our destination. There's this folklore or folk theology that would say, if it feels good, do it, which is the absolute best way to ruin your life. There is only, ruin and run are only one letter different apart from each other. It's the letter I. And if you want to have a happier life, you need to come to terms with the reality and the sacredness of your own suffering. If you are not happy, you're not sinning, but you're not leading anyone either. Happiness is a matter of focus on your character. Character is who we are when no one's looking. It is also thinking about who you want to become and what kind of legacy you want to leave behind. When you open the door of a house and you smell fresh baked cookies or fresh baked bread coming out of the oven, that's the kind of aroma I think we should want to leave, something that people want to be around. We need to consider our purpose and our calling and start living in constant anticipation. One of the practices I'm doing right now is I write a promise of God down in my prayer journal before I start praying, because it helps me live in anticipation of what God is doing. People that seem to be the happiest live in anticipation. When studied, it isn't wealth, power, possessions, or influence that determines happiness. It's these three things of enjoyment, satisfaction, and meaning. meaning. Enjoyment and pleasure, they're not the same thing. Pleasure is a signal that goes into the brain, and it says this is a good way to get calories or partners or something else. This is no way to live. Hitting the pleasure button over and over again essentially is human ingenuity that is creating a pleasure substance that isn't real. And they can be very evil and very destructive to us. Things like fentanyl, pornography, carbohydrates, they're great examples of ways that we have been able to create a pleasure button in our lives and ruin our lives, ruin our relationships, ruin our health in the process. Enjoyment is a much more human thing where we can take sources of pleasure and add a couple things to it. And what do we need to add to that? We need people and we need memories. We add the love of people around us and the love of God, and we can remember this. And in doing this, we make things fully human and less animal. Think of it this way. If there is something that gives you pleasure and it could be addictive, never do it alone. If you're doing it alone, it's wrong, it's sinful, it's destructive. Binge watching Netflix and eating bonbons at midnight alone is not a good thing. This is searching for pleasure, and it's never going to bring you enjoyment, which means it's never going to bring happiness. So what's the second thing? It was satisfaction. This is the joy we get after a struggle. And if we don't struggle for things, we won't care much about them. Watch a caterpillar it crawls along on the earth, it builds its cocoon, and it comes to a certain point, it begins to launch out of that cocoon. I mean, while it's on the ground, it's bird prey, but at some point they make that cocoon, they start that metamorphosis, they start taking a lot of pain, but they get to that place where they start coming out of the cocoon. If you come along and you cut the cocoon to make it easier for them, you'll kill them. They need the struggle to become what they were created to be. If you cheat on an exam so that you can get the A, you don't get a great deal of satisfaction from the A. In fact, there's a lot of guilt going on in your head. But if you put the joy and the hours into studying to get the A, there is this tremendous joy just pushing through that event. James 1, verses 2 and 3, it says, "Consider it a pure joy, my brothers and sisters, when you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance." The life of a believer isn't easy. It's doable. It just isn't easy. If it were easy, more people would do it. Sometimes our struggle requires sacrifice. It requires pain. When we have goals and there is a struggle to get there, there's this satisfaction that takes place. The problem is when we arrive, it can be very disappointing, and there's the reason for that. It's because our brain gets used to our new environment. Now, if you get angry, you're not going to stay angry forever because you need to be ready for your next situation. If you're joyful, it's the same thing. If you go to the gym, you hit the treadmill for 20, 30 minutes, you hit it really hard. When you step off, your heart rate comes down to a normal level pretty quickly, depending on how good a shape you're in. Our brains have to get back to their baseline, but we have trouble understanding this because the world doesn't care if we're happy. That's a folk theology, a street theology. It feels good, do it. That's a fake theology. John 10:10 says, "The thief comes to only steal, kill, and destroy. I've come that you may have life and have it to the full." Satan is a liar, and he will make you believe that a new car is going to make you feel happy, and you're going to enjoy it for the rest of your life. The truth is, you're going to get used to it pretty fast. Being content means we start thinking about wanting what we have as opposed to having what we want. True happiness is not having more, but in wanting less. The third ingredient, meaning. A lot of people think that possessions, power, money, and fame are going to bring them happiness. But the truth is, those are only idols and distractions away from happiness. Jesus gave this parable in Luke chapter 12. He says, "Watch out. Be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in the abundance of possessions. Then he told them this parable. The ground of a certain rich man yielded an abundant harvest. He thought to himself, what shall I do? I have no place to store my crops. Then he said, this is what I'll do. I'll tear down my barns and build bigger ones, and there I will store up a surplus of grain. And I'll say to myself, you have plenty of grain laid up for many years. Take life easy, eat, drink, and be merry. But God said to him, you fool, this very night your life will be demanded from you. Then who will get what you have prepared for yourself? This is how it will be with whoever stores up things for themselves, but is not rich towards God. So, you want to be happy? Let me give you the 5 habits. This is not something I came up with. This is research, and this is what they found about the 5 habits of the happiest people. Letter H. We have to have faith in God. Have faith in God. If you take a relationship with God out of the picture and depend on yourself, you're always going to want to be in the spotlight. You're going to want the spotlight on yourself. Remember, bright lights don't need spotlights. And this is mindless. It's tedious. And that person's language is always about themselves. My job, my money, my commute, my disputes, my. What needs to happen is you need to get small and God needs to get big. Jesus said, John 3:30, he must become greater, I must become less. God's got to get bigger in your life and you need to get smaller. It's the fear of the Lord here. James 4:6 says, God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. And to have this happen, we need a relationship with God. We need to unplug from our devices and we need to have a change of our brain diet. We need to have a time of worship and prayer. It's living out the great commandment of love God with everything you've got and love your neighbor as yourself. We need a relationship with God, not a religion. Religion is about tradition. It's about rituals. It's about trying to measure up. Did I get all the check marks down? It's the dangling of the carrot in front of the horse. It's unattainable. Ephesians 2:8-9 says, for it is by grace you have been saved through faith. It is not of yourselves. It is a gift from God, not by works so that no one can boast. Religion is from the outside in, where relationship is from the inside out. I see having faith in God kind of like living in a 3-story house. I was raised in a 3-story house. We had a basement, we had a main floor, and we had the upstairs. The basement was dark. It was had 4 windows in it, and they were very small. It was damp down there. There was a kind of an odor down there. There wasn't a lot of things down there. You couldn't say there was life down there. The main floor had the kitchen in it, the dining room, the living room, and some bedrooms and a bathroom. That's where you lived. Then upstairs, there was 1 room, but there were big windows, and it was bright, and it was spacious, and it was quiet, and it was private. I think that's the way God has it. So often, we're doing life downstairs. That's just life. That's mediocrity. That's going through the mill of everything else. It's underground. That's the basement. The main floor, where the kitchen is, that's a good place. It's a place to have fellowship. And then there is the upstairs, and it takes effort to get upstairs. Some things about getting upstairs, when we think about it in a spiritual sense, think about it this way. God invites you. God created you to be there. God equipped you to be there. God desires you to be upstairs. And it all starts by being in that main floor presence with the Father. And when you are in the basement and looking up, everything looks big. But when you're upstairs and you're looking down, everything looks small. Don't get too comfortable down in the isolation of the basement and the everyday muck of life. Be careful that you do not get too comfortable in that place that you don't belong. Don't get too familiar with these surroundings, because there is another resident downstairs who actually is an enemy of you and God. The climb up to the main floor is not an easy one. It requires that you leave what isn't necessary behind. Those things that give you false and temporary pleasure. They're idols. You might feel good for a little while, but after a moment comes of there is shame, there is pain, there is hurt, and you hope no one finds out about the secrets that are down in the basement. The invitation to the main floor is to spend time with the Father, sharing your deepest hurts and your concerns, which He is already familiar with. And He just wants you to unload them on you so you don't have to carry them anymore. That's how much He loves you. And there's a temptation to skip the main floor and rise upstairs, but you cannot climb from the basement upstairs immediately. You've got to spend time on the main floor, because you're designed to be equipped and have the help of God the Father walking with you. And you go from the main floor to the upstairs, it's a little bit easier because you've left your baggage down in the basement and you've climbed up with the Father. And from upstairs and with the Father, everything down below looks smaller. So we need to have faith in God. We need to have a personal relationship with Jesus. Letter A, appreciate family. Family is the deepest relationship we can have on earth. It is companionship and love. Family is the relationship other than your spouse that you don't get to choose, but they are very important to you, even if you are not on speaking terms with each other. And that's painful because we are hardwired for relationships, and this all comes from God. Love God with all you got. Love your neighbor and your family as yourself. Letter P, presence with friends. One of the biggest problems in the world today is loneliness. People are lonely not because they don't have a lot of people around them, but because our relationships have gone from real friends to deal friends and virtual friends. We need real friends in real life. Jesus said, greater love has no man than this, than he lay down his life for a friend. And studies have found that the happiest adults are those that have 2 or 3 very intimate friendships with people that just love them for who they are. Real friends are useless friends. Deal friends are useful friends. Useful friends. Useless friends don't really need you to fill anything for them. They just like you for who you are. They don't have an agenda for your life or want to see you see what they can get out of you. Studies have shown that the happiest people tend to be married and they have at least one close friend. And I think we all need a 3 a.m. friend, a friend that we could call at 3 in the morning and they'd be there for us. They would get out of bed, they would put something on, they might brush their teeth, and they would come to where we are to take care of us. That's a 3 a.m. friend. But user friends, they're not going to be there. They don't see an advantage for themselves. Deal friends have an agenda for us. They won't take your 3 a.m. phone call, and they are going to share their opinion on everything and tell you that your opinion is wrong. They get mad if you question anything about what they say. There are 3 happiness thieves that have been going on around us over the last few years that we need to maybe address. And remember what Jesus said? The thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy. Well, this is why happiness has been on the decline over the last 20 years or so. What are they? Social media is a thief. The pandemic has been a thief, and hatred due to political controversy. Those are all cancel culture. We don't like it, I unfollow you, I unfriend you. I've got to keep my 6 feet between us. I don't agree with your politics. So we got to get beyond that and be present with each other. Next letter P, pay it forward. Acts 20:35. In everything I did, I showed you that by kindness and hard work, we must help the weak, remembering the words of Jesus himself said, it is more blessed to give than to receive. I find in my life, when I do for others, my happiness increases. We must walk with our eyes open and look for opportunities to make a difference, even if no one else notices. It's not about getting noticed. We don't need a spotlight. We're just doing this. You know, for me, I love to push in shopping carts. I don't mind getting on the motorized scooters and pushing them, driving them back into the store so somebody else can use them. But the type of people that do that, they're kind people and they're wealthy people. Maybe they're not wealthy in possessions, but true wealth isn't found in possessions and money and position, but in the relationships that an individual has with God and with others. Folk theology or street theology would say, it's not my job to push in shopping carts. They've got employees that do that. That's an attitude. That attitude is actually a lie, and you're robbing yourself. When you leave a shopping cart, you take the risk of that shopping cart hitting a car or my car. There are people who believe that they should use their car to play hockey with the shopping carts. Now the cart is messed up. It's the shopping cart that pulls to the right or pulls to the left all the time. It has to be replaced. Who's going to pay for the replacement of that shopping cart? It's going to be reflected in the price that you pay for the products. So let's take a second and push it in, because we're kind people. We're wealthy people. Let's do it. Now, the last one, letter Y. What word starts with Y? Why? That's it. We need to know our why. Know your why. Why? If we lose our why, we lose our way. And when we know our meaning, why we are here, I can go and a good amount of time without enjoyment. I can go a good amount of time without satisfaction. But meaning is what I need if I'm going to stay happy. Meaning is my hope. It is said that a person can go 40 days without food, up to 4 days without water, up to 4 minutes without air, but only 1 second without hope. So meaning has a few things to it. Why things happen the way they do, the life direction and goals, purpose, and my life's significance or my identity in Jesus Christ. So here's the question to answer for ourselves. Why are you alive? So for me, why am I alive? So that I may honor God and love the people that he created. Mark 10:25, Jesus said, "For even the Son of Man did not come to serve, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many." If Jesus came to serve, why can't we? Here's another question. Why would you be willing to give your life to today? Or what would you be willing to give your life to today? To someone who would be grateful for what I've been given and see what I did as meaningful sacrifice. I'm not just going to give my life to Joe Blow. I want them to see I'm making a sacrifice. I believe for happiness to begin, it starts with having faith in God. Jesus wants to have a relationship with you. And if you call at 3 a.m., he will answer. His only agenda is to take you out of the basement and move you to the place where you can be more like him and think like him and experience the good he has for you. Jesus wants you to have a relationship with him, not a religious experience with him. That's how much he loves you. God loves you, and so do I. May you have a blessed day.